I've been car-free and carefree for 319 days now. 319 days of car-free and carefree in Los Angeles. And, you know, when people from New York or San Francisco hear me talking about being car-free, they're like, whatever, everybody rides the bus and the train in New York City. I did too when I lived there. But when you move to Los Angeles, everyone says you cannot live here without a car. How will you survive without a car? Well, it's a very long story how I ended up without a car, but it was a choice, and at first it was an experiment. I was going to do it for 3 months and see if I could live without a car in Los Angeles, and within about 30 days I knew I was in. I was sold on being car-free in Los Angeles, and it's day 319. And I've so enjoyed talking about, sharing, photographing the beauty and the humanity in the streets and the buses and the subways. In Los Angeles, there's a big difference when you are in the streets versus being in your car. And I personally experienced this because I was actually living here 15 years with a car. So I really feel like I'm alive, very much alive in the streets of LA. It's a very different experience. So I've been having a great time. And then last Tuesday, which I think was day 308 of Car Free Carefree in LA, was election day. And some great things happened in Los Angeles. I'm so excited. Scott already talked about Measure M. I think we're gonna take this city into the future with more public transportation. But of course, Donald Trump was elected president, and within, I don't know, by the next morning, I just felt like the streets of Los Angeles, are they gonna change? Are they gonna be more full of anger and hate? Do we live in a protective bubble here? And of course, there are reports of all sorts of hate crimes and people spray painting swastikas on churches in parts of the country. A Saudi Arabian kid at school in Wisconsin was killed. There are all sorts of things that are going on. And so I start thinking, how am I going to change how I act and behave in the subways? And I'm not feeling so carefree. Still car-free, but not carefree. And I have a big mouth. And I pretty quickly say, you know, if I witness something, I'm in it. I'm going to do something. I don't think I am the kind of person who can idly stand by as someone is threatened or hurt. And so then this whole safety pin thing comes up, that if you wear a safety pin, it's a symbol of being in solidarity with people of color or minorities or LGBT, anyone who might feel threatened. And so I read this incredibly powerful. It was a blog. I did not read this in the New York Times, but I read this woman who was a veteran talked about, like, if you're wearing that safety pin, just really think about what that means. And are you really going to stand up in the face of something that could get ugly or violent or difficult? And so I'm reading this article and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, it's true. She's talking about things like, oh, are you ready to take a punch? Are you ready to be hurt? Are you ready to feel like your body is not safe? And so I had read that article on Monday morning, and Monday after the election, and Monday evening, so this is just the other day, for those of you who are watching live, this is just this past Monday, I'm taking the train back from, I do a bus scenario from my job in Burbank back to my home in Echo Park. And so got on the Redline train at NoHo and was zoning out, long day. I taught 3 back-to-back classes. I'm completely zoning out and just sitting in a seat. And it was at Hollywood and Vine, I kind of noticed this really adorable girl just like run quickly onto the train and like skip into a seat. And then I kind of zone out and go back to whatever it was that I was reading. And I hear a really loud, violent sound. And I look up and I hear the sound again. And now I see what is making the sound. This man has gotten on the subway train and he is punching the wall of the subway train multiple times. The first time I heard it, I looked up. The second time I saw it, he did it again. This is a young man. He's muscly, he's ripped, doesn't have a shirt on. He has on pants. He is angry. He walks down to where the door between trains is. And in New York, in a lot of places, you can actually go between trains while they're running, but I don't think you can in LA. He tried to open the door and he wasn't able to get through. And so he just turns around and he sits down and he leans his back against the door and slides down to the ground. And he's ripping stuff out of his pockets, and I am not very close to him. He's at one end of the train, and I'm probably not in the middle, even further back away from him. So I can't see what he's pulling out. I can't really tell what's going on there. But he's mad. That's what I can tell. And I'm just sitting there, and I start praying. Please let this man calm down. Please let everyone be okay. And a few moments later, he gets up and he goes and he sits in a seat that is probably 8 seats ahead of me. And I noticed that he's gone and he sat down with that cute girl that I had seen bop onto the train and sit down. And they start fighting and start screaming at each other. And she stands up and she's trying to get out of the way, but she's on the inside by the train wall. And so he's blocking her. She can't get out. So she like reaches up for the rail and like slides herself over into the aisle, turns around, spits in his face. And everyone on the train is like, oh, they have everyone's attention. She goes up to the center pole near the doors, holds onto it. He comes up. They start yelling. He gets in her face and gets into her bodily space and starts trying to kiss her. And at that point, this young man who's probably about 6 seats in front of me jumps up and says something to the guy. So that guy comes from one direction. A man from the opposite end of the train who had been near where the guy had sat on the floor, he comes this way, and both of them say something to the guy. And the guy just loses it. He's yelling at them. He's yelling, "Who is you? Who is you? I'm just trying to kiss my girlfriend." And I'm thinking back to that article I read this morning. And I'm thinking, okay, you're supposed to try to de-escalate a tense situation. You're supposed to try to just be aware that if you're trying to protect someone, that they may or may not want help. There were so many things in that article that I'm like trying to figure out in that moment. Sure enough, that young woman, the girlfriend that the angry guy is trying to kiss, she starts yelling at the guys who are trying to help her. She's screaming at them too. Everybody's screaming. And I can tell that the 2 men who are trying to help her they're stunned. Everyone in the train is stunned, but also they're kind of scared because these are just like two regular guys who probably don't ever work out or like, once a week or whatever. And this man who's trying to force himself on his girlfriend is so ripped and so scary, and he's got his chest up and he's like, "Who is you?" It was really freaking bad. The train stops at a station, and all of a sudden I hear the conductor go on, and he says, "Police to car," whatever. I didn't catch the number of the car, 233 or whatever. "Police to car 233. And then I noticed that while all of this has been going on, someone behind me had, I guess there's an emergency button and you can talk to the conductor, and this man back there is talking to the conductor, and the couple, they're now a couple, they're not just angry young man and cute girl who bops onto the train. They run out of the train, and just literally out of the train. So at that point, I go to the door. By the way, I have been taking pictures through all of this. That is something that is in the list of things to do when you're trying to intervene in what could be a violent crime, is to have somebody taking pictures or preferably videotaping, but I wasn't really on it. So I've been taking pictures through all of this. I go up to the door to see where they are, but I can't see them. Wherever they've gone, I can't tell. The conductor's still saying "police to car," whatever. And everyone on the train starts saying, "They've gone to the next car, they've gone to the next car." And the guy who's communicating with the conductor, he calls that information in, and we're like all waiting for the police to come. The police on the train are gonna come and save us all and save this situation. By the way, none of us are in danger. No police come. The train takes off. The next stop, that couple get off, and they just sashay off as if nothing has gone on, and by our train car, they walk by our train car, and I think every single person on the train is watching in stunned silence as they just calmly move away. The train starts going again, and I'm upset. I feel really stressed out. I see that the young man who had initiated the intervention, he's sitting up there in a seat by himself. And one of the things that I had read in the article about if you're going to wear the safety pin is that if you see somebody who is getting harassed or attacked, that you go and just sit with them and quietly talk with them about something, anything. And at this point, I felt like he was the one who had gotten harassed. So I went and sat down with him. And he was leaning his head against the window, and he looked really stressed out. And I think he had a tear in his eye. And I just said, "Wow, that was really scary, wasn't it? Are you okay?" And tears started coming down his face, and he held out his hand for me to take, and I took it, and I held his hand, and I kind of put my arm around him, and he said, "It's just that this is the world we live in now. This is the world we live in now." And I said, I know. And we don't know what that situation was between that guy and his girlfriend, and that could have been some game they play that they enjoy perpetrating in public, or it could have been a real abusive relationship. It could be a situation where she felt like she couldn't accept help, that she would get into more trouble or be more threatened if she did. We'll never know what that situation was. But what I do know is that in the face of the anger and the vitriol and just the hatred that was coming out in that interaction, that a whole train full of people stepped forward to help that strange young woman. By strange, I mean stranger, not strange. We all came forward to do something, and you know, it was scary, and I'm going to read more about what it means to intervene or intercede in situations like this in public. But I ended up walking out of there feeling like, wow, that was awful, but people rose to the occasion, and that, in my opinion, is what makes America great. Thank you.
Hi,